and the slide deck via email later today. With 25 years of global marketing experience and named by the Wall Street Journal editors among the 10 most innovative entrepreneurs in America, Rebecca Geyer leads the TREW marketing team in building strategic, thoughtful, and sustainable marketing programs for a wide variety of companies. In 2016, she released her debut book, Smart Marketing for Engineers, an inbound marketing guide to reaching technical audiences. And as a respected business leader and manager, Rebecca serves as a personal coach and executive communications advisor. TREW Marketing has been a TAB member since 2016. Rebecca, if you're ready, I will hand it off to you.
I am ready. Thank you, Julie. And thank you, everyone, for being here. I'm super excited to be here, to be invited to speak, and to talk about marketing tips to streamline and grow your pipeline. So I have an agenda here that I'll cover just briefly to give you guys an idea of what I'm going to cover today. So I'm going to do a really quick intro of TREW, but then I want to dive into this transformation that's happened in the buyer journey and how that's impacted sales and marketing, and how sales and marketing more than ever have got to be working very collaboratively together and have a very clear and defined plan in order to effectively have a high-performing pipeline. And then I want to end, before we go into Q&A, with a brief demo of software and how today automation software is just becoming the glue that is facilitating marketing and sales teams working together, owning this timeline together, understanding the customer, and ultimately driving demand for your companies. So let me just give you a brief overview of TREW. So TREW Marketing, my business partner Wendy and I started TREW coming up on 10 years ago. We're here in Austin, and actually Wendy is on the TAB board here locally. And we, just as a side, kudos for TAB, we have just thoroughly enjoyed and greatly benefited as small business owners from our TAB experience. We started TREW in 2008, conveniently about 6 months before Lehman Brothers declared bankruptcy, and the Great Recession started in full swing. We found ourselves at the beginning of 2009 kind of looking at ourselves going, now why did we leave that super great, comfy corporate job that we had and start a new company? And we had absolutely no revenue in our pipeline. And to say we were freaking out was a bit of an understatement. So we were really nervous. And we looked at each other's, and just kind of looked back at our experience and said, okay, there's this marketplace of marketing agencies, and they're very smart and they're very good at what they do. How do we fit uniquely into this space? And that's when we reflected on our experience of 30 plus years in the scientific instrumentation marketing and said, you know what, we know how to market to engineers better than anyone else in the world. We believe confidently, and we're going to zero in on that. And that has been our brand position and messaging ever since. And so now our tagline, Smart Marketing for Engineers, really underscores that. Around that time, the Wall Street Journal was doing an article on how small businesses had not only survived, but thrived through the downturn. And we came up with the saying of say no to grow, which is the first chapter of my book, all about having a very clearly defined position and message. And lo and behold, Wendy and I ended up on the cover of the Wall Street Journal, and we had several margaritas after that, celebrating that milestone. So that was great. And so, as we like to say, we know engineers. We have, through our own experience before starting TREW, and certainly working with our customers who are just some of the best clients that you could have in the world. They help us get better and smarter with every turn. And then we've also done quite a bit of research, and we continue to try to understand how the buyer journey has transformed for our specific audience of engineers. I'm going to share some data as I go through that you'll see extrapolates well to the broader B2B market. And so we've just really invested and been committed to doing research. And it was through this research and just continuing to work with TREW clients who are engineers, usually by degree. They don't have a background in marketing, and they are at best dumbfounded by how to do marketing today, this modern inbound content marketing way of doing marketing. And at worst, they're completely disbelieving of it. But certainly in either way, they're confused. So that's what led me to write my book, Smart Marketing for Engineers. It's a guide to reaching technical audiences. And in particular, I wanted to call out some of the topics I'm going to cover today. I'm going to move through them and just have time to touch on them. But know that in these particular chapters, I go into great detail about marketing planning, about target personas, keywords, and lastly, toward the end of the book, around marketing automation. So, and I'll have reminders as we go through about where you can get more information on the topics. Okay, so that's just a little bit about TREW, but let's dive in. So this buyer journey has transformed. So when I was starting to write my book, I had heard and seen cited for a year or two this data point that 57% of the buyer journey was happening before sales was involved. And it took me a while. I wanted to cite that in my book, and it took me a while to find it, but I learned that it was from the Corporate Executive Board. And we just heard them speak actually just recently again, and they reiterated this, and they have continued to find this to be true in their research, that 57% of the buyer journey is happening before sales professionals get involved. And that number grows as the sale gets more complex. Well, why is this happening? Why is more and more of this process happening without sales being involved? Well, we can thank Google for that. Google has really single-handedly completely transformed the environment of marketing, and to a greater and greater extent sales, so that now the buyer has not all, but so much of the information they need to do a lot of the early research and consideration building online. They have the information at their fingertips. They can type in a keyword and they can find content like videos. They can go to LinkedIn and see what other people that are in their field are learning and sharing. And so the power has really transferred from the vendor and the marketer and the salesperson being in control of where and when and how our buyer learns about us and engages with us, to now the buyer squarely being in control of that journey. In the Challenger customer, they went on to describe this 57%, more specifically by saying this: customers are now doing on their own most of what suppliers used to help them with. They're identifying a need, they're prioritizing those needs, and then they're determining the capabilities that are required to address the prioritized needs. And then they're starting to identify suppliers and even starting to do early research around cost. So this 57%, this buyer journey being transformed, where sales is getting involved further and further into the buying process. I had heard this from Corporate Executive Board, and I was really curious what this was going to be when we did our own research for our target audience of engineers. And I have now asked this question, I think at least four times, maybe more, and it continues to be consistently that about 60% of engineers say that over 60% of their buyer journey happens online. Now, I asked the question even more specifically. Corporate Executive Board just says before sales gets involved. I actually asked it to say how much of the process happens online before you finally speak to someone at the company. And if you were to drag this orange rectangle, to the left slightly and grab that 22%, it would be that basically about 80% of engineers say that half of their buyer process is happening online. So as I show more data from our research specifically around engineers, you'll see that what I have found is that the broader B2B market data tends to be quite similar to what we're seeing in our market of engineers specifically. So I wanted to go a step further, and I wanted to say, okay, well, let me ask this a different way. And I asked this next question, and I've also asked this a couple of times now. When you're in the buying process, which best describes your preference? Only 14%, and you can see our end sample is over 800 engineers, so our end sample is really solid here on this research. Only 14% of engineers said they want to talk to a salesperson early in their research to learn about the company's products. Instead, the vast majority want to search online. They want to talk to colleagues. That colleagues is the 13%, and then we had a specific one on this about videos. So this is, again, just kind of asking that question in a different way. So then I wanted to go a step further and say, okay, well, if this is happening online and you don't want to talk to sales first, when are you ready to talk to sales? How many interactions on average do you have with a company before you're ready to speak to sales directly? And we asked that question. I've also asked this a number of times, and it comes around this 3 to 5 interactions on average that they want to have with a company before speaking directly with the vendor. And if you look at that, it's 50%. If you add in the 15% that want to have 5 or more interactions, in this particular survey, we're getting ready to launch this in the next couple weeks, it's 65% of engineers are saying they have 3 or more interactions. So, this buying journey has really transformed. And just because a lead comes to your website and downloads something doesn't necessarily today mean that they're ready. And so this is going to lead into what I'm going to talk about in just a minute of sales and marketing working so much more closely together. But let's switch gears and talk then about your pipeline. So you're at your company, and let's say probably many of you are super pleased and satisfied with your pipeline. For those of you who have some issues, maybe you're having some pipeline issues such as you don't have enough volume in your pipeline, or maybe the quality isn't right. You're getting some traffic and leads at the top of your pipeline, or maybe you're getting leads from offline sources, but the quality is not right. They're not converting into qualified sales opportunities. Or maybe it's just taking a long time for a lead to move through to become an opportunity. Another issue we see often is in some industries we work in, like military and aerospace or government, there's very long sales cycles. So that comes with its own set of challenges. So these are some different issues you might have, and you might have issues at different stages of your funnel. So maybe you're not happy with the activity that you're having at the top. Maybe marketing isn't bringing in enough visits and leads and really driving those qualified leads down and passing them to sales. Or maybe you're getting really good activity at the top, but like I said before, you're not getting the quality and they're not converting. So you could have different issues in your pipeline, and those issues could be living at different places along your marketing and sales funnel. So you're not happy. So this is a pretty typical response of sales and marketing teams to work in silos and respond to pipeline issues by starting to do more and different activities. Maybe marketing is going to do some more events or email or increase some ad spending, or maybe sales is going to reach further up into their pipeline and call some colder leads, or maybe they're going to run some temporary promotions around discounts, or they're going to create some new materials to try a new pitch or try to engage their opportunities with a new story. So none of these are wrong, none of these are bad, but the question is, these teams are both working really hard, but are they working smart? And in particular, what I mean in my definition of smart here is, are they both asking about the customer and how this buyer journey has changed and how sales and marketing can work together to have a shared understanding of who that persona is and what the persona's very specific and unique needs are, and how they can work together to strengthen the company's consideration in that online, without sales involved buyer journey, and how they can drive more demand together. And so what I'd like to do now is I'd like to introduce a persona. I'd like you to meet Darryn. He's going to be our customer that we're going to talk about and we're going to use throughout the rest of the presentation. So let's think about Darryn. So Darryn he's on a journey. He's on a buyer journey. And let's dive in a little bit further and learn a little bit about Darryn. So what do we know about Darryn? Well, from our own knowledge inside our company and having worked with other customers that are like Darryn, we know that he has a business degree. He's always been in the sales role. He's, got say 10 to 15 years experience and works at a small to mid-sized company. He's responsible for the entire pipeline from leads to opportunities. And his authority is that he's going to recommend the budget and resources he needs to his president in order to achieve his quotas and ultimately achieve what the business needs from marketing and sales. So his goals and challenges, and I should say this is real. This is actually inspired by a conversation I had with a person who is a Darryn at TREW. He's a qualified opportunity for us right now at TREW, and this is literally what he said to me just earlier this week. So we need to double the size of our company. I have no marketing staff. My primary sources for leads are referrals and word of mouth, and that is not gonna get me the doubling the size of my company in 2 years. I know I need a marketing and sales plan, but I'm really not sure where to start. And I can go ask for budget, and I'll probably get it, but then the pressure is on to immediately show results. So I've got to have confidence in that marketing and sales plan that I'm going to ask money to invest in. So this is just a little bit about Darryn. So let's come back then to this and remind ourselves of Darryn has this need. He's being charged with doubling the size of the company from a pipeline standpoint. He's got to have a plan that he's got confidence in, because when he goes and asks for money, the pressure is going to be on for him to deliver. So if we're the vendor at TREW Marketing and we're trying to sell to Darryn, we know and we're reminded that Darryn is going to go do a lot of the research around how to start to build this marketing plan. He's going to do it online. He's going to do a lot of research and other things, and I'll actually expand on Darryn a little bit more in a minute. So this is what Darryn's buyer journey, just at a high level, looks like. So let's parallel that then with a marketing and sales team and how we want to engage with Darryn during his buyer journey. And I want to introduce you to this infographic here. So you see some puzzle pieces and you see some individual things kind of coming off of each of these puzzle pieces. So let me walk you through this. So let's start with Darryn. Darryn has a need. He's got to fill his pipeline with a solid marketing and sales plan that's going to confidently support his efforts to help the company double in size in 2 years. So the very first thing we need to do is we need to define a persona. We need to very specifically understand Darryn so that we understand his need. And then Darryn's going to search. Now, I didn't share data with you here in this presentation today, but I've asked this question a number of times now, and the number one most valued content source is search engines for our market at TREW. And again, I think this, as we have found, our data extrapolates pretty nicely to, or pretty similarly to, the broader B2B market. So he's going to go to search, and he's going to primarily go to Google. So when Darryn is searching, what's going to come up in the search? He's going to type in a keyword, and a whole bunch of search results are going to come up. Well, what is that? What are those search results? All that is content. It's videos, it's web pages, it's blog posts, it's news releases, it's white papers, it's all kinds of different content. And so we want our content to show up in that search that's very tied and that Darryn finds to be very, very relevant, and we're trying to win a click. We want Darryn to click on our content so that we win that web visit. So we've got to optimize that content on our website so that that content, that web page, that blog post, that news release is going to show up when he searches on those terms that are relevant to our services. So why do we want to win a web visit? Well, we want to get him over to our site so that we can start to build trust and introduce him to more of our solutions and how we can help him solve his need. And our next goal with that web visit is we want Darryn to complete a form. Again, I don't have data in this presentation, but I have asked, again, a number of times, engineers will complete lead forms. So if engineers will, likely the broader B2B market will. The key to success in lead forms on your website is that you keep the number of fields to a minimum. Ideally 3 fields, but no more than 5. We see a really big drop off after 5 fields. We want Darryn to complete that form so we can learn more about him. Doesn't mean we're going to bother him, doesn't mean we're going to have sales immediately call him as soon as he completes that form, but we want him to complete that form so we can start to share more of our content and start to build trust, build consideration, and ultimately build preference. And we're going to do that by interacting with him more, sharing more content so that we can start to understand what he's interested in and ultimately get him prepared and further qualified so that marketing is ready to pass Darryn to sales. And I'll talk about scoring a little bit later when I do the software demo, so that ultimately then he becomes an opportunity. And marketing has not only passed the lead, but we've passed the lead with a great amount of intelligence about all the stuff that Darryn has done on our website, so that sales can go into that conversation with a great deal of context and then add velocity to that sales conversation. So I've talked about Darryn and his process, and then in parallel talked about how the marketing and sales teams want to be part of that buyer journey. And so if I come back then to this, to this slide, remember, and I just said, I kind of mentioned that just because Darryn comes to the website and he downloads a form, completes a form and downloads content, it doesn't necessarily mean that Darryn is ready for sales to call. And that is captured in this data here. So this is why it's so critically important today, more than ever, that sales and marketing are working together to create a very detailed marketing and sales plan that is going to drive that pipeline and that demand that the company is asking for. So let me move into marketing planning now and talk about the key elements. And as the saying goes, if you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there. I'm going to briefly touch on this, but again, I go into great detail in my book about marketing planning from goals to outcomes. So here's the key elements. Personas I've talked about, I want to talk about them just again briefly. Having campaigns and KPIs, having a scorecard with metrics, having a budget set, of course, and then having marketing and sales roles defined so that there's a spirit of accountability, not competition necessarily, although some healthy competition can be good, but truly documenting that pipeline and having it very clear who owns what so that there can be a real sense of accountability, and that's ultimately going to drive greater revenue, faster revenue, and higher profitability. So to talk about personas, I had this quote before. Well, actually, no, so I have a different quote from the Challenger customer. And they talk about this idea of B2P or business to people. It's their way of reminding us that we're not selling to companies, we're selling to people. People buy things. And suppliers, all of us vendors out there, we have got to understand far better those people that are buying from us and get in front of them far earlier with content that speaks to each of their unique needs. So I want to introduce you to this graphic to the right. This orange funnel is very similar to the blue one I showed before. This is a graphic out of my book. And what you can see is at the top of the funnel, you're trying to attract that, you're trying to get that click from search and drive traffic to your site. And in the gray area to the right, you see some bulleted columns of these are content types. These are suggested content types that you might use at this stage of the funnel. It's not an exhaustive list. It's meant to be more suggestions. And in fact, we've even tweaked this since the book came out. But the idea is that you have free content. It's not, it doesn't have a form in front of it. And these are the blog posts, web pages, so forth. And then you're going to use more content then to try, so Darryn comes over to your site, he's now a web visit, and you're going to use more content with calls to action throughout your website to get him to ultimately complete a form. That's where he converts into a lead, and you're going to use what gated is usually a term that you'll hear, gated content that's kind of got, if you will, a gate in front of it or some fields that a visitor has to complete to get access to that content. So we're going to use this content to really build out or move this lead through the funnel. Well, so how do we know what content to create? Well, that comes back to personas and really understanding who these target audience, these target customers are. You can think of personas as fictional representations of your target customers. Often when we're doing this with our customers, we end up actually using one of their real customers as an example. So it's often based on insights that you already have. And then by truly understanding and defining and debating, I mean, get into a good debate about this and really make sure that you understand and that everyone agrees, again, that shared understanding, because that's really going to drive the kind of content that you create. A very simple process that we do with our customers will brainstorm all the possible personas, but then really narrow down to those top 3 and prioritize those based on their influence in the buyer journey, or they might be in different markets, and really back to the ultimate business goals and who are the personas that are going to have the greatest impact on achieving those goals, and then we'll develop those collaboratively together. And so here's an example of a more detailed persona, and this is actually just one slide. When we do these, we'll have 3 or 4 slides that'll go into detail like this. But to give you more detail on Darryn, this is actually one of our personas at TREW. We call him Sales Director Darryn. His titles are often VP of or Director of Sales or Business Development. He has a degree in engineering. He's an influencer. He's maybe on the leadership team. He's almost always male. So again, we get a picture, we have a name, and that represents most often who this person is and what they look like in this role. His age, has a degree in engineering, but he has a career in sales. He gets information from Google and LinkedIn. He's not a marketer, he's a sales guy, and he has an engineering degree, so he's going to read a lot of marketing books and maybe go to some marketing seminars. So that's just briefly about personas. Again, really go into a lot of detail in my book on that, but you guys get the idea. It's really honing in, and there's a whole nother slide on, what are his pains, what are his challenges, what is a day in a life, that really start to inform those content ideas. The next element of a marketing plan is a SWOT. I don't need to spend a lot of time on this. You guys know what a SWOT is, but I just can't emphasize, it's a simple tool, but boy, is it effective. The good debates that happen from doing a SWOT exercise, and also just the wonderful mechanism of getting ideas, getting fears, concerns, competitive intelligence, whatever it might be, from out of the heads of your team onto paper is just a really powerful exercise. So we strongly recommend this be part of marketing. We do it in all of our marketing planning service. And one thing I just want to note, a lot of people don't realize that the strengths and weaknesses are meant to be internally focused, and the opportunities and threats are meant to be external. So a lot of you may realize that, but I thought I would mention. So that's a SWOT. And the next element of a marketing plan is the campaign. So you can think of a campaign very simply as a set of activities around a common theme. Now that theme could be all kinds of things. It could be a 30th anniversary of a company. It could be a leadership change usually at the ownership level. It could be a product launch or a service focus. It could even be a regional. Maybe you're a financial services company in the Midwest and you see some real opportunity to create an adjacent regional focus in New England. And so you want to have a campaign around that. So campaigns can be anything, again, a series of activities around a common theme. In this case, I have a lead generation and nurturing campaign. And campaigns have 3 primary aspects to them: objectives. They really lay out what you're trying to accomplish with the campaign, and then key tactics. And this is the bread and butter. This is where all the time and all the money is going to go. So it's really important to get these key tactics lined out and prioritized. And, you know, whether it's the, you know, expanding into a new region like New England, or, you know, it's a product or a service or even a new industry, it's most campaigns, and you see it here, the vast majority of the activity is going to be around creating content, optimizing that content, or publishing and marketing that content. You're going to have other things, but most campaigns are going to have a heavy content element today. And then the last aspect of the campaign is KPIs. I have a lot of different KPIs here. Usually a campaign will have 3 to 5. I added more here just to give you guys an idea of what, you know, different KPIs could be for a campaign. So now you might be thinking, gosh, Rebecca, that's a lot of content that I'm going to need to create. You know, how am I going to go about doing that? Well, let's first talk about this business to people idea again. The Challenger customer authors went on to say this: more advanced marketing teams are building ever more accurate customer personas and building more targeted content at each stage of the purchase journey, this journey that we see over to the right. And so you might be thinking, well, gosh, you know, how do I even get started? What do I write about? And again, this comes back to your persona. But let me give you just one suggested method for starting a content brainstorming. And that's using this idea of clustering. And so always with our content, we're always going to start with our persona. And we all like to have, at TREW, we always have the picture right there, right in front of us, just to remind us all, who are we writing to, what are his pains, and what is the unique solution that we have that we can start to engage him. So here's a way that you could start a content brainstorm. And I'm going to use TREW as an example. So if we're TREW, we're trying to win Darryn trying to get Darryn into our pipeline. And so we're trying to think of content that we might write that's going to help us to get found in Darryn's search. So a main topic is marketing to engineers. Okay, so let's think more about Darryn's pains and what we might write about. Well, we know that Darryn, he needs a plan that he's got confidence in. Well, maybe we could write about marketing planning for engineering companies. Or maybe, you know, we just get right to the heart of the matter. We know that Darryn needs leads. And so we're going to write a checklist, the 7-step checklist to increase leads for engineering audiences. And so that might be just something very specifically about lead generation. Or maybe Darryn is a lot earlier in his process. He really hasn't decided if he needs a marketing plan, or he's kind of got one he's somewhat satisfied with, but he's just really interested more in this whole buyer journey transformation. And I hear about inbound marketing and content marketing and online marketing, and what does it all mean? And he's looking for educational content. And so maybe we could just write a very simple, high level, top of the funnel kind of piece of content that's an inbound marketing guide to reaching engineering audiences. Or another might be just around how to optimize your website. And again, you could have, you know, 5 or 10 more branches off of this. But this is just a way to start thinking about tying Darryn's pain and what his needs are to content ideas. Now, once you get your content ideas, before you start writing, what you want to come back to is, because you got to remember, very methodically, you're trying to get found in Darryn's search. Well, what is Darryn going to be searching on? So that's something that you really need, that's a question that you need to ask and you need to get an answer to. What is Darryn going to search on? And then separately, what do we want to get found on? So thinking about these 2 questions, these are a couple images I want to show you out of chapter 4 of my book, where I talk in depth about the process of selecting keywords. And so when you're thinking about your keywords, of course, you know, you want to start by just an open brainstorm. You want to think of all of them, start typing in things related to your services, things related to your persona's pains, things that you think that they might be searching on. This is a great opportunity to ask your customers what they search on related to services or products that you offer. You're going to come up with your list, and then you're going to start to narrow that down to, 7 to 10 keywords, depending on your company size or depending on, the variety of products or services that you offer, the different markets that you're in. And you're going to narrow those down based on three things. You can think of it as a three-legged stool: average monthly searches, competition, and relevance. I want to introduce this graphic. Many of you have probably heard of this concept of the long tail. What is, I'm going to use my mouse here and just kind of guide you guys on screen. It's intriguing, the idea of coming up in search on a term that's very high in volume, but what you're going to find really quickly is that usually those super high traffic terms have very high competition. And so what you want to do is you want to think about the long tail. So if I go down to these, think about more descriptive phrases. While your search frequency over here is going to get lower, your competition is going to get lower, and you're also going to get a lot more relevant to your particular services and your products. So don't be tricked by high search volume. If you have a much lower search volume, but it's exactly the right people searching for exactly the right thing that you want to be selling, well then that's a win-win for both the searcher, the persona, and also for you. So that's just, again, very briefly about keywords and how you can see how your persona definition and your content and what you write about, and then how you optimize that content with specific keywords are all very, very integrated and very tied in. The last thing then is around scorecard and metrics. So you have KPIs along your campaigns. You're also going to just have very high level, KPIs or metrics you're going to be tracking of offline sources, like how many leads do we get at trade shows? What's our PR coverage? What new leads do we get from existing customers? So you'll want to have a very customized scorecard, but this is one, this is a template like what we use at TREW with our customers and at our own company. You have the owner, and then you set quarterly targets. Maybe you'll even set an annual target. Sometimes quarters vary depending on seasonality of your business. So you might even want to just set quarterly targets, track those monthly, have quarterly meetings and we actually, when these are filled out for TREW, they're actually red, yellow, and green. So we pat ourselves on the back for a quick second on the greens, and we dive into the yellows and reds and try to understand, why are we missing them? Do we set them too high? What's not working? And then we're just constantly making tweaks. So having a scorecard really then fosters that great communication and accountability. So then let me just kind of finally talk about the importance of alignment before I go into software. So it's not surprising then, as everything I've talked about, the buyer journey transforms, sales is involved much later, marketing has more of a responsibility to understand the buyer, understand the pains, and be creating the content that the buyer is that we're gonna win the visit, win the lead, and ultimately nurture and build trust to pass that lead to sales. It's not surprising then, as you think about that scenario, that the more sales and marketing is aligned, the faster your revenue growth is going to be, and the more efficient your resources are going to be used, ultimately then driving higher profitability. And this is data from Serious Decisions. I was actually just in Cleveland a couple of weeks ago, and I was speaking to an audience where I asked the same thing. Do sales and marketing teams at your company, are they working together? Are they discussing content? Are they talking about your personas? And this was actually 23 that answered before I got there and spoke, and then I actually had 50 or 60 people in the room, and I asked this question again, and it was the vast majority say no. Sales and marketing teams are not working together. And here's another example from Serious, just purely looking at content. Marketing spends all this time creating sales enablement content that they think sales is going to use, and yet the vast majority of salespeople are saying they don't use marketing content. They don't find it relevant. Maybe they're not even aware of it because sales and marketing aren't talking. So it's not surprising that the more alignment you have between these two teams, the more growth and the more profit you're going to have. So what you want to get to from a sales and marketing alignment perspective is something that looks like this. Whether it's using a more infographic, like the left, or you bring in more details around average sales cycle, number of deals required, even taking into consideration your average sales price. You want to start to be able to build out what the conversion rates are and what the absolute numbers need to be for you to ultimately get out of the bottom of the funnel what you need to achieve your business goals, whether it's sales quota or it's ultimately, the overall company quota. And so what we recommend is that sales and marketing come together, start to list out KPIs that could be shared, starting with something like the funnels or the table I just showed. Start to talk about ways that marketing can help sales and ways that sales can help marketing, and have a regular meeting. How often should you meet? What should the goals of that meeting be? They're going to vary for each company and be a little bit different, but just start meeting. You got to start somewhere, and you're not going to have the whole funnel probably figured out on day one. That's okay. We didn't at TREW, and we've just we've figured it out over time. But one of the things that's really helped us to get a lot smarter about our pipeline and has really fostered a lot of communication between marketing and sales is software. So I want to go in now to explaining software. I'm going to actually get out of PowerPoint and give you guys just a quick demo. But to start this off, as I like to say, from an investment standpoint, and many of you are going to be business owners or business leaders, you're looking at your cash. You're thinking about how can I grow my pipeline and what investment is it going to take? Well, something to think about is maybe your next marketing and sales hire shouldn't be a person, but maybe it should be software. And I want to show you why I think that. So for the demo I'm going to go into a marketing automation and sales and marketing automation software package called HubSpot. Some of you may be familiar, some of you already may be using HubSpot. So for those of you who are not aware, HubSpot is focused in the small to medium-sized business. They do have an enterprise version as well. We used to be more technology agnostic about which marketing automation software that we recommended, but we're just not anymore. We fully believe in HubSpot and just have seen tremendous value. We use it at TREW and in marketing and in sales. And so I want to show you just some key features of how this can help you streamline and grow your pipeline. So the first thing is just very simply the dashboards. So here's a couple of screenshots, but let me actually go out of PowerPoint, and I have my browser here behind me. And here is, I'm going to go over to marketing. So you might have seen me in the left-hand corner over here. Switch over to marketing. So here's just a very simple, very straightforward, it's a very clean user interface, a marketing dashboard. And I've got my visits to my website, I've got my new contacts, I've got my customers that we're tracking. Down here, I can look, this landing page performance is going to show me my performance of the web pages on my website that have forms on them. Now, this conversion rate in particular, you want to see at least a 20% conversion rate. So that would be of every 5 people that come to a form page on your site, you want at least one of them converting. We're doing really well here. We have almost 1 out of 3 converting on our website. This is a really cool feature down here. You can actually see these are 2 different life cycle stages. This one over here, contacts by life cycle stage, shows you how many contacts are sitting in different stages of your funnel. And this one is really cool because this one shows you, so up here at the top in these colors, in this legend is where they are in the pipeline. And then down here is your different sources. So it might be referrals or social media or direct traffic or even offline sources and organic search. So you can see here, the vast majority of our leads at TREW are coming from organic search. So that's the marketing dashboard. Now I'm going to go over to this, again, this upper left-hand side. So we have the marketing and the sales portal here in HubSpot. And this is the sales dashboard. So again, you can see your deals, you can see your sales performance along your pipeline. You can see your deals and where they are in different stages of your funnel. I can even go down here as the owner of the company, and I can look at how my sales team, what are different engagements my sales team is having. So this is pulling out of all the different contact records where these notes are stored, and what are the different communications that are happening with my sales team. So that is, those are the dashboards. So let me come over to PowerPoint, and I'll come back in slideshow mode. So you can just see that it really allows you to pull metrics very quickly. So your expensive and limited, expensive resources, marketing and sales resources with limited time are not wasting a bunch of time trying to pull metrics. It's all right here in the tool. The next thing I want to show is how software now allows you to gather intelligence and automate lead nurturing so that ultimately you know exactly when to pass a lead over to sales. And so here's an example of what I'm going to show you in the software in just a second. This is one of our customers, a gentleman named Chris, who gave me permission to use his record. And I can see here everything that, this is just in a short period of time last year, what he's clicked on, what he's opened on. And again, like I said before, just because Chris comes and he views some web pages, maybe he downloads something, it doesn't mean he's necessarily ready. But what's great about automation software, and this is what's different than CRM software, in marketing automation software, you can gather intelligence about everything that your lead is doing on your website before they become an opportunity, and then that allows you to nurture with context over time. It also allows you to, so this is really interesting data. We asked, how likely are you to do business with companies that thank you for your interest and offer related resources? 84% of engineers that we surveyed said they're more likely to do business with these companies. So having automation software allows you to have these emails set up so that as soon as someone downloads something on your website, you can have an email ready to go. It automatically sends with further related resources that are more calls to action to keep them coming back to your site. So let me go over back over to the software, and I want to show you a contact record. Let me make this actually a little bit bigger. So here's a lead in the TREW Marketing HubSpot database. Her name is Sarah. You see over on the left-hand side some pretty typical fields in your contact record. And down, if I keep scrolling, if I wanted to see what deals we have with the company, if I wanted to learn more about Sarah's company, I could. And here I see at a high level how many visits and pages she's viewed. Now, as I'm scrolling down, you see over to the right, there's all this detail about what Sarah has actually done on our website. And this is what HubSpot calls the timeline. I can see emails that have been sent and delivered and ones that she's opened. If I keep scrolling down, I can see ones that she's actually clicked on. If I keep going, I think there's one here here's one that she clicked on. I can see pages that she's viewed. So here she viewed this page. The one thing your sales team should stop doing today, and it goes on and on. I can see what she's downloaded and so forth. So this is just a really powerful aspect of marketing automation software that then allows you to know when to pass, so that when you pass that lead to sales, sales has all of this intelligence about what that lead has done, and they can have a much more contextual conversation that really can add velocity to that sales conversation. The other thing you can do is add lead scoring. So as sales and marketing is working more closely together, we can understand fully if someone downloads this white paper, they need to immediately be passed to sales. But if they download these other two or they visit some web pages, they're probably not ready yet. Those are higher in the funnel pieces of content, so we're gonna hold off. So you can add things like IP country, number of page views, so forth, and you can also add negative scores over here if you're not wanting to work with a particular industry or or you're not wanting to work with a particular country, you can actually add in negative attributes. Now, one thing we encourage all of our customers to have is a prospect rating criteria. This is a shortened version of ours here at TREW. And so a great way to start on your scoring is to start with your prospect rating criteria, and then that's a really easy transition to starting on your scoring. So like I said, then you have all this intelligence about your lead, and you can go right into, you can really arm sales with the information to go right into a really high value, high impact sales conversation. And another thing that marketing can do, and I want to, is sales templates. We can help sales write their templates so that when they're ready to do outreach to that lead, they have a really well-written sales template that can help them really get that phone call. So I wanted to just show this really quick, but this is a really cool aspect. So I'm in Gmail, which is what we use at TREW. And I have Sarah right here already in my email, in the to field. I've got my subject line, and now with HubSpot sales CRM tool loaded, I can access my templates right here. I can come over and select this template, and it automatically picks this. And all I have to do is go in and change this to Sarah, and I can change a few things about my email. I can also go over here and log and track this email so that as soon as Sarah responds, I can come over here, and I'm going to close out of this email. I can come over here and I can look, and I can click on this little tool in my Gmail, and I can see if Sarah has opened or clicked on my emails with this tool right here in my Gmail. So those are just a few aspects of marketing automation, marketing and sales automation software, and why it's just so important that people understand that this really should be their next hire before they hire the next actual person, is software. And I wanted to put some pricing up here really quick. We get this question all the time about pricing. Here's over here on the left is the CRM, which is free. The marketing is based on your size of your database, and then the sales software, which gives you the deals, the tasks, the sales templates, and some other advanced things. And it's also free, or if you get into the pro level, it's a pretty reasonable price. So you can do a search on HubSpot pricing, and this will come up. But that's just a little bit about HubSpot. So that's the end of my presentation. Lots of different content on our website that is targeted to engineers, but again, a lot of it is applicable to non-engineering markets. And here's a way to connect with me or my partner, Wendy, who again is in TAB here in Austin. And if you want a HubSpot demo or you want to buy the book. So I am done, Julie. I will pass it to you, and we can open up for Q&A.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Rebecca. As she mentioned, her contact info is up there. So if we, for some reason, don't get to your question, feel free to reach out to her directly. But if you do have a question, please go ahead, type it into the question box. We did have someone who said thank you to you and Wendy, so they're very appreciative, which is great.
Super. Thank you. You're welcome.
All right. We do have one come in. Let's see. I have a CRM already, and we use it for some marketing functions. Do I need marketing automation in addition to the CRM, and can you maybe explain the differences?
Yeah, that's a great question, and that's something that we come across a lot, because usually small businesses they'll have salespeople, on staff far before they'll have any marketing people. So often the first software that is purchased is a CRM to help the sales team manage, their contacts and manage the communication between the contacts and to have a view into that pipeline. And that's similar to the sales tools that I showed in HubSpot. The big difference, there's so many differences. There's so many aspects to marketing automation that are not included in CRM. But just one as an example is that timeline feature that I showed, where I had the circles around Chris and what he had opened and what he had clicked on. And when I showed you the Sarah's contact record and the pages that she had viewed, all of that intelligence that you're gathering about what that lead is interested in is so incredibly valuable for marketing and for sales. And you don't get that in a CRM. So CRM is it's built for sales, and it's really, really good at sales. And marketing automation software is built for marketing, for that, higher in the funnel intelligence, all that lead nurturing. That 85% of engineers said that they are more likely to do business with companies that say thank you and offer further related resources. Having those automated, we call them automated lead follow-up, or ALFs, having those ALF emails just set up in your system, and you never have to lift a finger. It really makes your website become a 24/7, 365 employee for your company. And it's all through software. It's all automated. So they're both really valuable, but they both are really different. And if you're still kind of confused, or you're not sure, is it really worth investment? Feel free to reach out. We can do a deeper dive demo, or I can connect you with Anna at HubSpot, who's our partner over there, and we can have her give you a demo. But it's a common question, but they are different.
All right, thank you. So we're getting a few come in here.
Okay.
More, I should say. There are some unique aspects, legal, to selling to the federal government. Do you know of a good pipeline tool tailored for the federal market space?
I don't. That's a really good question, though. And you know what I would recommend? I would recommend that if you get the slides, shoot an email to Anna over at HubSpot, because while we're focused in our select group of industries, these marketing automation companies, they work across industries, from pet grooming to government, you name it, and they also work globally. And so they would potentially be a really good source to ask that question, and they would be happy to either answer it if they know the answer, or connect you on with maybe another source to answer that. And maybe there's someone else on the call who works in government who might know. So I wish I had a specific answer for you, but those are a couple of, that's a source to maybe consider, is asking HubSpot or asking the TAB community.
Great, thank you. And I will just use this as a reminder that you can always send an email to your facilitator, and they can actually send it on to the TAB member hotline and for discussion. So
cool.
That's another option.
Yeah.
Okay, so Brian has actually said thank you for so generously sharing your deep insights into sales and marketing, and best leads our prospects to buying decisions. So very appreciative there.
Thank you, Brian. Yeah, I appreciate it. Happy to do it.
Okay, and another question. Does this HubSpot system interface with any event registration platforms to create nurturing campaigns for attendees who register at on-site events?
Yeah, that's a really good question too, and I don't know the answer, but I'll because there's so many out there. HubSpot has done a really good job of creating APIs, making the API really straightforward to be able to plug in, and they over time have added so many plugins to your most common CRMs. They actually have a plugin to GoToWebinar. So actually at TREW, we use GoToWebinar for all of our webinars, and we use all of HubSpot's tools. So like the registration page is all done through HubSpot. So anyone who registers immediately becomes a lead in our HubSpot database, and then from then on, their timeline, will grow as they engage with us. So while I don't know the specific answer or what specific event tool that you're using, a quick email over to Anna would get you the answer. She'd be able to tell you not only yes we do or no we don't, which I'm fairly certain the answer is yes, but also which one. So you could actually ask your specific one and find out, because the other thing is, if they don't have the established API already existing, usually they'll put you in touch with their development team. And if you have a developer or you could get in touch with that event team, they can create that API in a fairly straightforward manner. Because HubSpot is becoming now really the leader in marketing and sales automation for small and mid-sized businesses, most of the other kind of the ecosystem of marketing tools like an event registration tool and promotion tool, they're finding it in their best interest to start to create these plugins for HubSpot and some of the other leading marketing automation tools. So shoot Anna an email and tell her you were on the tab. Tell her I sent you, and you should get a quick answer.
Awesome. Well, that does wrap up all the questions that we have. So thank you again, Rebecca. And again, her contact information is right up there if you do have something else that you think of that you'd like to ask. And you can actually check out all of our previous BOSS webinars on demand by visiting our website and clicking on webinars. And there you can actually register for our next webinar that's going to be on October 18th. And interestingly enough, this is actually going to be on the sales view of some of the topics that we discussed today, the buyer's persona, journey, pipeline. So I think it'll be a really good complement to what you guys saw today. So thank you everyone for joining, and we hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.
Yeah, thank you very much. Have a great day, everyone.